In every age, God has raised up men and women to meet the needs of the day. Now is that time. You are the one. Now is the time for saints.
Most people, when they hear the name Pier Giorgio Frassati, they think of his famous motto, Verso l'alto, which means to the heights. Pier Giorgio was a young Italian student growing up in the early 1920s, and one of the things that I love most about him is that he was so normal. He loved playing sports, eating good food with his friends, playing pranks, and balancing his life as a student with his hiking expeditions in the mountains. But above everything that captured Pier Giorgio's heart, what captured his heart the most was our Lord, and especially his presence in the hearts of the poor, those that he served, and his real presence in the Eucharist. Pier Giorgio Frassati was truly a man after God's own heart, and he lived in a time not unlike our own where a lot of people thought of God as irrelevant, especially among the youth. But he was never afraid to put God first. In fact, even when he went hiking in the mountains, he was never going to go unless he could find a priest to say mass for them over the weekend. His friends were inspired not just by the way he radiated God's love, but by the way he always invited them to live in God's love with him. He was always inviting them to know Jesus as the revelation of the Father's love. Pier Giorgio does this for us still today through his motto, Verso l'alto. You know, another thing that Pier Giorgio used to say is, the higher we go, the better we shall hear the voice of Christ. What does that mean? You know, I think that Pier Giorgio loved hiking because for him it was always an image of the spiritual life. If you've ever been, real backwoods hiking, then you know it's not as romantic as it sounds. You're carrying a heavy pack and you're walking uphill constantly. You're hot and sweaty and uncomfortable, and there's all these different paths and rocks and crevices that you did not know about, and the weather can change on a dime. You're really faced with something that's unpredictable, uncontrollable. You really come face to face with the unknown here. In our hearts, there are mountains like this. There are places of the unknown, places that we didn't know before. And, things like old memories or weaknesses or sins. And encountering these places can fill us with fear. But Jesus tells us, do not be afraid. God speaks to us through the prophet Hosea and says, I will allure her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. I love this because this is what God does with us. He allures us into the wilderness of our own hearts, into these places of poverty, so that we can hear his tender voice speaking his words of love over us. Pier Giorgio reminds us that this is the beauty of our faith, that when we have the courage to go deeper into the wilderness with our Lord, we come to better hear his voice, and we come to know his crazy and reckless love for us. So my brothers and sisters, let this motto ring in the hearts of all of us who dare to go deeper, higher into the love of our Lord, deeper into the wilderness with him, and better knowing his love, because his love never disappoints. So verso l'alto, to the heights.